Now playing.
Spoiler alert.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Spoiler Alertz. It's Kelsey. How's everybody doing? I know it's been a little bit of a minute, but
where have you been?
I'm in a better place now, so we can actually have some fun conversations about the movies. So let me tell you what I've been watching. Start it off. So obviously, like I said last time, I'm still obsessed with The Nanny. It's my favorite comfort show, even though now as I'm rewatching, I know last time I said it was like absolutely not problematic, but there are little fat phobic jokes in it, that I'm like, probably couldn't say that now. And with the new Indiana Jones movie coming out, I've definitely been binging that and just really getting into my animation bag. Like, I've been watching so many just random animated movies, and I think that's because animation, like, no matter what the subject matter is, it just puts me at ease a little bit. I don't know, it makes me feel good. So any good animated movies I'm always down to watch, which actually leads us into what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I chose this movie because honestly, I already knew I was going to want to talk about this movie because I was obsessed with the first one. If y'all have been listening, I've low-key probably dropped hints about the first one throughout many of the other films that I've done, so it only makes sense that I do this one. So yeah, let's get into it.
Wait, stop!
Before we get started, let me tell y'all just a little bit of how Spoiler Alertz works. So I'm going to pick a movie and then I'm going to rate it based on 4 categories, which is chain of events, characters, creativity, and cinematography. And I'm going to give it 1 overall score. I'm going to rate it out of 5 stars. So 1, 2, 3, let's go, man! So the film I chose this week is Spiderman Across the Spiderverse. It just came out last week and I've already seen it twice. Like, that is how obsessed I am with this movie. Now, I know the name of this podcast is Spoiler Alertz, but I really don't want to spoil this for y'all, so I'm just going to read y'all the chain of events from IMDb, and that should be vague enough. So it goes, Miles Morales catapults across the multiverse where he encounters a team of spider people charged with protecting its very existence. When the heroes clash on how to handle a new threat, Miles must redefine what it means to be a hero. Again, short and sweet, very cute. I will not go into heavy detail on the chain of events, but this movie it's over 2 hours, y'all. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it feels kind of long, but not in a bad way. Like, you really just kind of going along with the story, like, oh, this fight gonna happen, like, woo, like, you just into it. So when it gets to like the end scene, you're like, okay, yeah, like, I'm ready to sit here, I'm ready to be here for another 2 hours. It ends and you just like, I want more. Like, I want more things. And I don't think that there was a slow part in the movie, because upon second watch, like, everything that's really built on top of each other, and you have to pay attention. Like, it's not something you can just have on in the background. Like, you really gotta notice certain spider people or certain comments that are made, and it's just really important to pay attention, y'all, when y'all watch this movie. So I'm gonna give it for chain of events, I'm gonna give it like 4.5 out of 5. I really want to give it 5.5, but I'm like, was it perfect all the way through? I don't know. I don't know if it was like perfect, but it's definitely 4.5 out of 5, and it's worth it. So I'm gonna leave that there. Next. Okay, so now let's get into this cast, because again, the first time I watched it, I was just like in it, loving it, just so excited. Then I obviously went to look up the voices afterwards, and so then when I watched it the second time, I said, okay, now I can hear all these different voices. But again, this is a Marvel movie, so the cast is stacked, okay? So in our main character, Miles Morales, we have Shameik Moore, who was in Dope and The Get Down. We have Haley Steinfeld redoing her voice of Gwen Stacy. She's Spider-Woman. And then we also have Brian Tyree Henry, who was in Bullet Train in Atlanta. And then we have Jake Johnson from New Girl, and Oscar Isaac from Ex Machina, and Issa Rae from Insecure, and even Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out, and even Amanda Stenberg from Hunger Games. So, and these are just some of the people I've named. Like, there's so many other amazing actors in this movie that I would be here all day if I was listing them. But casting, I think, was a great job. I love how they brought the older voices back and then introduced us to new people, because even Karan Sani's in it, and he's from Deadpool. Like, it's really cool how they just interwove like voices we know, but seeing them in a different light was just really cool. But aside from casting, like, if I'm just talking about the characters and their development and growth, like just as a character, that was wild. Because okay, when it first starts off, I feel like we're focused on Gwen Stacy a little bit more, so we get to see more of her backstory and why she is the way she is, and we see like a little bit of her kind of like inner angst throughout the movie and kind of what she's going through. But this is a Miles Morales movie, so when it gets back to him and we see how he's dealing with being Spider-Man, because at this point he said he's been Spider-Man for a year and a few months, so he's really kind of like, he's in his spider bag, okay? Like, he's doing what he needs to do. But like all of the spider people, like, they're struggling because they feel like they're by themselves, because they can't tell nobody about their secret identity. So we see a lot of like identity crisis type of thing going on like throughout this movie. And so Miles Morales' growth is, to me, it was kind of insane, because like you're watching it and you just feel for him, and you see he's just a teenager trying to live his life, but he's also a superhero. Like, it's so much going on. And so then when he finally gets this moment and he's like, you know what, I know who I am, and he like says his name, he says what's going on with him, he's like, this is me. And it's great. Like, it was a really great revelation. And on top of like that going on, I feel like there was also a subtext with the parents, because the parents are raising these teenage spider people and they don't realize it. And so it's the usual, you can't do this, and why aren't you talking to me, and be more open, but tenfold, because your child is also living this secret life that they can't tell you anything about. And if they did tell you, then it's like, oh, now you've been lying to us for this long, or just, it's all these other things. And so the parents see their child struggling, and we get to see kind of on two different ends of the spectrum, like what could happen if somebody says something to a parent and how they deal with it. And so that was really cool too. So we got to see that growth of character and like kind of what it means to love your child when you don't know what's happening, which I think is really important for parents, because sometimes they won't know what their kid is going through, but it's like, how do I get it across to them that I still love them and support them no matter what it is? So I really like that lesson was also taught in there through the characters. I feel like growth was the major theme, well, one of the major themes for the characters in this film, because like I said, everybody is growing. Like our two main spider people that we're looking at, their respective parents, the other spider people in the film, like you kind of see everyone has this inner turmoil going on, which I think is a really cool reflection of life. Like everybody has their own shit and everyone deals with that shit differently. And so we kind of get to see how all these different people deal with loneliness, deal with being an outcast or not belonging. Like we get to see that, and I think that was really cool. Also, I want to go back to the chain of events real quick. Each animated Spider-Man, like Across the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse, both of those films, they had themes. I feel like the theme of the first movie was, what kind of person do you want to be? Because one of the Spider-Man, he was like, I was Spider-Man, then his life kind of went to crap, and he's dealing with that, and then Miles Morales is trying to figure out, like, again, like, what kind of Spider-Man he is. And I feel like they kind of carried along that theme, because in this one, the main theme is, like, what story do you want to tell? Like, what is your story? And they had it under the guise of, like, college admissions, but obviously Miles Morales is like, what's my story as Spider-Man? Like, who am I? And then when we get to see all these other Spider-Man in their own universe, it's like, well, what's their story? We get to see, like, some people's backstory. We get to see, again, like I said, why they are the way they are. But your story obviously is a reflection of you. And I think they show that really beautifully, because even someone who may have certain things that are really similar to you, it's still not your story. It's still not you. And even though, like, we may have some things that shaped us the same, we're not obviously all going to be the same person. And I really like that message, because we are all different, and being different is what makes us great. And even though, I'm not gonna lie, they definitely all lives mattered Spider-Man, which was my issue with the first one. It's a little bit my issue with this one, just because of some other things that are said. But maybe this is like their kind of reaction to that, because the first one, they definitely all lives mattered Spider-Man. But in this one, they're just like, okay, yes, anyone can be Spider-Man, but everyone is different. And that's good, because it works for their story, and it works for that city and that town and that universe. And I'm gonna take that message away. So I know that was more about chain of events. I just had to say that out there.
Child. Anyway, so.
But back to these characters. I really liked them. I was so interested in their story. I liked how they did have so many things going on, but I was still actively interested in everybody. And I feel like that's kind of hard, because sometimes when you're watching a film, you really like the main character or the side character, but to make most of your characters likable and engaging is difficult, and I think they did a really good job at that. So I know I'm going to give them really high marks later, so maybe this is just me being a tough grader in my head, but I'm going to go again with the 4.5 out of 5. Even though secretly it's a 5 out of 5, you know, I'm going to just roll with it. It's a 5 out of 5, y'all. Characters, 5 out of 5. Love it. I love it! Okay, now let's get into this creativity, because this right here, this is what brought me back. Like, yes, the story was good. Yes, the character was cute, all of that. But like I said earlier, I love animated movies. Like, I'm a Disney girl to my core. That is my shit. And what I've seen recently is just this resurgence of animated films, and they're just amazing. And it's not just for kids, because if you remember, my very first podcast by myself was Intergalactic, and I had to do an episode on it because I was obsessed with how it was animated. And I was like, oh no, this is so good, I gotta tell the world about this. And even my last episode on Puss in Boots too, like, it's something about a good animation style that just has me glued to my TV. And also, with the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that came out in 2018, that movie, I feel like, really broke a lot of animation barriers, because, like I've referenced before in my other two films that I just told y'all about, that movie, they didn't want it just to look like a regular animation. They really stepped their game up, so they made it look like 2D and 3D, like they combined it. And I'm really about to geek out on y'all with these things, but they wanted it to look like a comic book. So usually when you do animation styles, like you draw it, I guess, on the ones, so it's 24 images each frame, but this time they animated on the twos, so each image has 2 frames, so that's why you're able to see this kind of 3D pop out look within the first movie. And so since they did that, again, I'm going to reference the other 2 films just real quick, like with Puss in Boots 2, like they saw what Spider-Man did, and so they're like, we want to do that same thing, but for fairy tales. And and they just really inspired this new way of looking at animation, because Guillermo del Toro, he's saying that animation is a medium and that we don't really take advantage of that, and I completely agree. Like, people kind of brush it to the side because they think it's just for children, but you can still convey beautiful stories with it being animated. I know that in like the 70s and 80s there was like heavy adult animation, but that adult animation was heavy on the adult part, and I feel like even adult animated cartoons now, it's just like a lot of like sexual and crude humor. They're like, oh, adults will like this, but when I see things like Intergalactic, or I know Spiderman is technically for the kids, but when I see things like that, I'm just like, okay, your audience can still be broad without it being unnecessarily sexual. And I think we're like coming to a really good balance with that. Like, we're just able to tell really good stories that just so happen to be animated. And I would honestly be remiss if I didn't mention the directors of this film, who really kind of brought this creativity to life. So Joaquin Dos Santos, who also directed the Avatar Kids show and Legend of Korra, and then Kemp Powers, who's a writer and director on Disney's Soul and then One Night in Miami, and then also Justin K. Thompson, who helped with the original Spider-Verse, and then Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Like, when you look at even their past record of films, they are changing the game of what it means with animation. Because even Justin K. Thompson, he also helped direct Mitchell and the Machines, which I believe came out in 2020, maybe 2021, and it was still this, I loved it because it was this larger than life animation, and I really like that that's his signature style, because it really showed through in this movie. Like, one of the first creative things that I noticed in this movie, like I said, there are tons of spider people in this movie, right? But each spider person has their own animation style because they're different. They're from different universes. It's so different, and it's so evident. Like, most animation films only use one animation style in the entire movie. Like, that's just how it works. But this one, there were 6 prominent ones, because like I said before, each universe it's drawn differently. Like Gwen Stacy, it's very watercolor. Your emotions surround the background of what they're in. Like, if you're sad, you're blue, or your background is blue, or if you're kind of excited or you're not sure, maybe you're pink, or if you're angry, you're red. And one scene, the father, he's really not sure what to feel. He's angry, he's sad, he's confused. So he's just this kind of merge of red and blue and maybe a little bit of black in there, and it was gorgeous to watch. It kind of reminded me, I don't know if you guys read webtoons, but if you do, and a popular one is Lore Olympus, and Lore Olympus, they kind of have this, I don't know, like watercolor, maybe dramatic blues and pinks, and that's what I thought of every time I saw her world. I imagine that. Or if you want to relate it back to Disney, kind of think of 101 Dalmatians from the 60s, where again the backgrounds were very jazzy and bluesy, and then another one, the Spider People, his colors are like browns and yellows and oranges, which reflect his surroundings, because he's in India, so you get to see that. And again, if you just want a point of reference, think of the Jungle Book from the 60s, again because it's based in India, but the color style and color schemes are very similar to that. And Miles Morales, our main character, yes, he's still the original comic book 2D type of thing, but when they're all together, and especially when like Miles Morales is talking to Gwen Stacy, like you see it, like it's very different. Like, I don't know if y'all remember like the Snapchat filters, like the pop Snapchat filter where you kind of look like a cartoon, or even the cartoon style makeup people do where they draw the little circles on themselves. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but anyways, like Miles kind of has like that slight overlay with that, because that's his world. And then when you see him talking to Gwen Stacy, like she has some, because she's still a comic book, but her lines are more smooth and crisp and clear, and it was gorgeous to see how they did that, because again, this goes back to my original statement about everyone being different. Like, you're different not just because how you became Spider-Man or what Spider-Man looks like or how old your Spider-Man is. Like, you're different all the way down to how you're drawn, how you speak, the jokes you make, like all of that. And it's so great.
We get it, man.
Okay, that's the last part I'm gonna say on the creativity. So in my research, I've seen that with both of these films, what the animators are trying to convey was something that's obviously heavily stylized, like I talked about with the different animation styles, but had a really strong emotional appeal. And I think they marry those together really well because, like I said, they thought of the characters' emotions, they thought of what they were going through, and they made that come through not just with how they drew their faces and expressions, but their surroundings. Because again, like when you're going through something, like your world feels different. Like when you're happy, I feel like the birds be singing, the sun be shining, all of that shit. But when I'm sad, no, everything feels gray and gloomy, and I'm easily irritated with everybody. Like, nah, don't talk to me. And they did that. They showed how humans feel, or how we kind of feel like we're the main character type of thing. Like, they showed that, how everyone feels like they're their own main character. So if you haven't noticed throughout all of my geeking out, obviously the creativity is 5 out of 5 for me. Absolutely beautiful. Like, I could not wait to come and talk to you guys about this after I did research. Like, I was like, no, I gotta come with the facts with this one. I can't just be me being excited. Like, I want to know. So yes, 5 out of 5. Great. Okay, now let's get into the cinematography. And I know I'm kind of like talking about both Spider-Man movies at the same time, because you kind of have to, because to see where this one is going, you have to see where it started. So in the first film, there's this scene where, again, Miles Morales is trying to figure out what type of Spider-Man he is. Like, who is he? What does this mean to him? And you see him kind of like willingly step off this building because he's taken this leap of faith that he can do this. He is that guy. And it's so gorgeous. It was the most, I feel like, talked about scene from the first movie, because as he's obviously dropping down due to gravity, that's not what we see. We see him rising up and we see the city below him. So they kind of inverted that image, and it's so beautiful because he's rising to the occasion. He is becoming Spider-Man and he's doing all this stuff, and it was just so gorgeous to look at. So I really was wondering how they would top that, or how that they would show Miles's emotions again through beautiful scenery, or not scenery, through beautiful cinematography. And I think they did that by, yes, obviously they had close-up and scenes like that, but we also had these scenes where we got to see the universe, because this movie is called like Across the Spider-Verse, so we really need to see what these other universes look like. And I think because they're all supposed to be like some version of New York, so we got to see New York look very different in, like, I think four, maybe 5 different universes. And that was cool because they still had obviously like a really beautiful inverted scene where for our characters, they're just sitting down looking at the city, but for everybody else, I'm like, why y'all upside down? And I think that's like a really good, again, reflection of our characters, because their world is upside down. Like, they look at the world differently because of who they are. They can't see the world like everybody sees it. Like, they see the bad guys, they see the underbelly of the world, all this type of stuff. Like, I could really go into it, but I'm not. But I think the way they played with those angles was really cool. Like, there's this one scene earlier in the film where Spider-Man is talking to his dad, and he's dressed as Spider-Man, and he's trying to give his dad some type of advice, and he kind of stretches his arms out and is like, you gotta let him fly, spread his wings type of thing. And we got to see it from 3 different angles, and it was cool because I got to see it kind of from what the father saw, I got to see it from how Miles Morales saw, and then I just got to see in one shot they really showed you just how big this universe was. So it's like you're trying to keep him small, but he really has this wide universe of things to see and explore, and give him that option to come back. Like, what's that old saying where it's like, if you set something free and it comes back, it was really yours, but if you set it free and it never comes back, it never really belonged to you, or something along those lines. I feel like that was a small thing that they showed. But with this film being so long, and I'm so engrossed in the story, so engrossed in the characters, like, I feel like you can miss out on the cinematography because you're just taking it all in as a whole. But when you really break it down, like, they did a really good job of just showing you the beauty of what animation can do. And again, obviously I was very blown away by everything, so I'm gonna keep this a little more short and sweet because I know it was a little long-winded on the creativity. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5.
Why am I not surprised?
Okay, so overall, this movie is a 5 out of 5 for me. Like, when I first left this theater, I was geeked, okay? And I'm not a Marvel girl. Like, I had to research some of these Easter eggs because I was like, I don't know what y'all referencing, because they reference a lot. But I just liked the movie. Like, I was walking out the theater and I was like, this is how I'm supposed to feel leaving a movie. Like, I was excited. I wanted to talk about it. Like, I was really blown away. So the animators, the directors, everybody, I think they really outdid themselves, because again, I was reading somewhere and they felt like with their other films that they've done that they can kind of just have fun with it, and then people are like, wow, actually that was pretty good. But this one, since the first Spider-Man did so well and the animation style was so great, they're like, dang, like, we got to do even better this time. Like, they've been working on this animation for like 2+ years. So I think they did great. It was amazing. I recommend everybody go see it, and then come tell me what y'all think about it. So I know this episode was a little bit longer than most, but I thank y'all for bearing with me as I geek out about this film. If you liked what I had to say or had some comments, please follow me on Instagram at Spoiler_Alertz with a Z, or on Twitter at Spoiler_Alertz_. Definitely tell me what y'all think about it, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.
See you next week at this same time.